everybody. Welcome to Techstrong Gang. We're talking AIOps, which is suddenly, well, hopefully, everywhere. Back in a minute. Hello, everybody. We're back again talking about, well, all things IT. And we're going to lead off the show with a conversation about AIOps in the wake of some mergers and acquisitions. But let me introduce our guests first. We have Currer, Guy, where are you? Are you still in Texas or are you somewhere else right now?
Actually, I am back home in Austin, Texas.
Well, that's good because, our lead story took place in Austin, Texas. We'll get back to that in a minute. Stephen Foskett joins us once again, appears to be in Ohio. Is this true?
Yes, I stole John Oliver's nameless void from the pandemic. So here I am in the nameless void of Ohio.
All right. Well, it's still the coolest place. And every time I turn around, somebody's building a data center in Ohio lately. So there you have it. And then finally, once again, is the charming Bonnie Schneider joining us once again to talk about the latest and greatest in IT and climate control and all kinds of good stuff like that. But I think we have something maybe a little bit different this time out. Bonnie, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Let's get started. I'm going to go to Guy with this first one, but we saw last week Vertana acquired a company called Xenos, and they're both in the AIOps space. And we have seen also HPE has been making a strong push into this whole category, and BMC talks a lot about it. And what's interesting to me is they all talk about it not in the context of generative AI, but that's just a piece of a larger puzzle. They have predictive AI models and causal AI models and generative AI models, and they say it's going to take a village of models to get all this stuff done, because I can't just depend on something that's probabilistic for running my IT ops. I can't be wrong. I can't be right 8 out of 10 times because I'll get fired for the other 2 times. So, Guy, is this world changing in terms of how we think about managing IT in the age of AI? And does it look bigger and broader than just the latest version of ChatGPT?
Definitely does. Predictive AI predates the big craze in generative AI. Generative AI completes your sentences, right? I mean, like roughly speaking, or completes a picture, because it doesn't have to just be words. And that can be really helpful with thinking through things, but it's not analysis in itself. Predictive AI is more like analysis. Causal AI is more like analysis. I mean, I'm really amused, Mike, that you're so optimistic about AI for once when it comes to IT operations, some of the most sensitive, complicated, and really organization shattering, operations in a company. So first of all, yes, I do think it's a new world, and I'm not given to making statements like that. Why is it a new world? Listen. Let's talk about Vertana and buying Xenos. You call them AIOps companies, but both of them, Xenos at least, which I'm more familiar with, far predates. I mean, they've been using machine language algorithm type thingies for some time, but they really predate the whole AI craze. What's the difference between the two? Vertana is cloud infrastructure, and Xenos is more like on-prem data center infrastructure. They're both observability platforms. So why is that significant? Because they started out separately because observability and monitoring and IT operations in cloud environments, especially public cloud versus on-prem, are wildly different in a number of ways, mostly having to do with issues of control. You can't go and rip out a server in the cloud if it's problematic. You have to take other measures and you have to measure other things. So the proverbial pane of glass and hybrid management and all that other sort of stuff has remained continuously elusive over how long? 30 years, however long it's been, as the infrastructure's changed, become more, not just complex, but more capable. So I ask myself, could AI in all its forms, especially, and I'll say the A word, the new A word, agentic AI, could this be the way out of worrying about single panes of glass and thinking more about agents and preferred interfaces, helping to look through these masses and masses of metrics and logs and traces and so forth, and helping IT shops do what they've always wanted to do, which is to keep the systems running. It's just the mass quantity of things that an AI of any kind can look at any one time and come up with an idea or a recommendation that reduces the firing squad from, 8 on 8 to 2 on 2 or something like that, and shorten decision-making times in IT shops, make their work more responsive to the business. It does, to my mind, show that promise. Yes.
Steven, you've been around this space for a while. I mean, when I first started covering this space, there was a lot of cynicism about anything related to AI, and most of the people were like, "This thing will never learn our systems. They're all unique and they're different." But now you talk to people and you get this kind of vibe that says, "Well, I may not be a whole believer, but I kind of recognize maybe I can't manage this level of complexity without some help from AI."
Yeah, that's the thing that's interesting here is I think what we found is that there are AI models, and again, as Guy pointed out, we're looking beyond that sort of lens of just LLMs. It's not just about chatbots; it's about using machine learning models to figure out trends, to spot outliers, to identify problems. This is actually a really good use of machine learning. For what it's worth, we launched our Utilizing Tech podcast before ChatGPT. And the thing that we were expecting AI to have an impact on was this: essentially, spot the needle in the haystack, spot the trend, help us sift through all this data and figure out where things are going. And to my mind, that's really the core of AIOps. It's using AI, not just LLMs, using AI generally to sift through data and come up with valuable insights. Now, the problem with coming up with valuable insights, and again, this will kind of segue into our next block when we're talking about Qlik. The problem with being analytics and insights and so on is that you need the data. And having lots and lots of data to process is not the same function as being able to process that data and spot trends and make recommendations. And that's why it makes sense to have somebody like Vertana looking at something like Xenos. So like Guy, I'm very familiar with Xenos, having been in the IT space for a long time. I mean, basically, this is a company that was founded by nerds like me who wanted to use open source to monitor their infrastructures. They wanted to figure out what devices do I have? How are those devices performing? There's a lot of deep integration with, kind of old school stuff like WMI and SNMP and stuff like that, predates the modern IT space. But the idea is collect all the data. Well, when you collect all the data and when you analyze all the data, then you have, step 4, profit. And that's, to me, what's going on here. And it makes sense. Every analytics and AIOps provider needs data and they're hungry for it. And acquisitions like this give them that.
I feel maybe I'm wrong, but I think we're approaching the point where the models are almost disposable. You'll have platforms like these, whether it's HPE or Vertana or BMC, seem to be able to invoke APIs to call different models as needed for different functions and agents. And I think swapping those models out is going to get easier as well going forward. So I don't know, Guy, are we on the verge of disposable AI models?
Oh, no. No, you're wrong. Do you want me to elaborate? I think that yeah, ChatGPT might give a better answer than ChatGUI, but I just think it's just such early days. We don't really know the potential complexity of uh, how to build, train models. We're just we're just starting to recognize the fact that the source training data matters, which is kind of absurd that it's not widely recognized from the beginning. Um, there's one sense in which I do see your point, which is that you want to train on like the kinds of masses of information and data that a BMC might have, or maybe an open source project as well might have, but then ensure the results are particular and specific to your own environment. So I think it's in the former realm that the more and more and more you push into not so much the generative as the predictive and causal models, the more likely that they will be reflective of like, or they'll make better decisions until you reach a certain point where the marginal benefit of additional investment is low, right? I think that's kind of what your point is. But I think we are also just sort of up leveling our ability to develop and create agents, to develop and create apps, thanks to these AI capabilities or workloads like these observability platforms. And so there's a lot of human technique that can still be brought into these things. We just don't know where it's going to go, Mike.
No. Bonnie, I was having an interesting conversation with somebody who was talking about the cost of AI, and they were suggesting we're going to need something that feels like FinOps for AI because we need to track the amount of energy being generated, the amount of compute capacity needed for all these things. So, I kind of look at all this and I laugh and I go, are all these things going to converge at the end of the day?
I think so. They're calling it green ops when it's a combination of FinOps and just managing DevOps operations. So yes, that is definitely a trend. And that's also kind of a selling point for a lot of these carbon accounting companies that are tracking and measuring energy for AI, that it can benefit the financial operations in a lot of ways. And then they have to, of course, show that through data. So that is absolutely a movement we're seeing forward.
Steven, will people rip and replace their existing IT management platforms to get to these capabilities, or are they just going to wait for their existing vendors to kind of add these capabilities over time, and it's just going to be an ongoing series of upgrades?
Well, there's a hunger for this. As you point out, companies are going to be looking at trying to figure out how to optimize their spend on AI and using AI to do that. And it's kind of a self-referencing thing, right? Maybe you can use some AI to figure out where you're spending too much on AI. That being said, I think that the nice thing about platforms like this that can optimize spend is that in many cases they can pay for themselves, or at least they can promise to in the sales cycle, because essentially they're going to identify areas of, well, to coin a phrase, waste and abuse that can be eliminated from IT spend. So this is an area that we're seeing in the Futurum intelligence side. There's a lot of research going on about companies trying to optimize their environments. Certainly, there's a huge demand for that. I'm looking at this number in the Techstrong article here that says that about 71% of organizations are still reevaluating where they're running these workloads simply because they need to make sure that they're optimizing spend. That's exactly what a combination like this will do. That's what AIOps should be doing. And so I do think there's a market for this, and I would like to see it. I'd like to see every company investing in this, because frankly, it's good for everybody if we're not wasting money and wasting resources.
Here's what I worry about, Stephen, is us reliving yet again, only now in the IT ops, aka AI ops realm, reliving the easy button approach of, oh, these things are AI enabled. They can make recommendations. Let's just throw it in there and we're going to save money. And that's it, without this recognition that must always be in the forefront that human beings should be supervising, running, reviewing. These are kind of like all recommendation engines. They're your dumb buddy who's enthusiastic and can read a million lines of whatever really fast, but don't just let it make decisions, right?
Mhm. I wonder though, and maybe I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad thing, but I think it might happen. Might we see a reorganization of the IT team, and maybe it's flatter because today, what happens all too often is when there's an issue, there's some sort of gremlin, nobody knows what it is, and we're all sitting in a room and everybody gets invited to come and prove their innocence in something called the war room. And that doesn't seem particularly efficient. It actually seems maybe people wind up being pitted against each other. So is there another way to think about managing IT altogether, Guy, or is this just going to kind of, be more of the same?
Well, historically, what IT has done is add functions. So now you're going to have some function within, that's how it'll start within IT ops, IT management, infrastructure management, this additional function. I almost see it as like can call it ops dev if you like, instead of DevOps, which is, there's always lots of coding going on in these teams, but in this case, it's more like, platform and AI management, maybe something like that. That's how it tends to start. What you're talking about to me is sort of, it's possible. It's possible for AI ops folks to become more generalistic, knowledgeable about more domains, more types of workloads and support and that sort of thing, because they will have the agents or agents upon agents that are helping them with the specifics and the particulars. But I took it a different way. I took it more as these are faster ways for existing teams to identify where possible opportunity or problem places are. And so instead of it being a war room, it's a kangaroo court where the two poor, domain members are dragged in and say, well, it's one of the two of you. We figured out that much. I think I'm the cynic of this conversation. You usually are. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, well, that's funny that you bring up the agentic area too. Maybe there is a new operations model, like Mike is suggesting, where essentially these AI ops companies incorporate remedial agents that can go and change the configuration. Because, if you want to be cynical, what would be better than saying, hey, AI, go optimize our entire AWS estate?
I don't know. I think we're going to see some dramatic changes, and it may not happen overnight, but I would say that, Guy, I think you kind of touched on it. We might be looking at the revenge of the generalist any day now. So hold on. We'll see how this all plays out. But we got to jump to our next vlog. We'll be back in a minute. Hey folks, we're back and we're got another one of those field reports where some of us go to an event and we come back and give us our impressions. Stephen was at a Qlik Connect event and they were talking about agentic AI and analytics and all kinds of fun stuff. Stephen, bring us up to speed. What's the future look like here when it comes to analytics?
Well, thanks. Yeah, we were at Qlik Connect in Orlando. Somebody named Guy was with me there at that event. And so you'll hear from him as well, along with Keith Townsend from our team and a bunch of other folks from the Tech Field Day side. This is our second time going to Qlik Connect. It's a great event because it is extremely end user focused. That's my favorite thing about it. It is one of those events where the team behind it, I mean, there's always a lot of end users and so on at these conferences, and you can meet up with them if you want. But at least the team that I work with at Qlik is always trying to set up opportunities for us to talk to those people and learn from them. They have an AI council. They've got, end users that they just sort of come up and introduce me to. I met a lot of CIOs at this thing, and it was really interesting to see how these people are seeing this new world of AI, agentic, and where we're going next. I would say that for me, the biggest takeaway was, as we spoke about in the first segment here on Techstrong Gang, it's all about the data. Companies need, if you're going to make use of any kind of AI, especially if you're going to have AI agents that give you advice or help make connections between data sets, you need the data. And so a lot of the announcements that we saw were, I'm going to say, nuts and bolts kind of discussions of integrating data in various ways, whether it's in the, as my dad would say, the comes into side or the goes out of side. You got to have data coming into your system from various third-party applications. Qlik made an acquisition there of a company that helps to bring data into a data lake and process that data and organize it. We also saw a lot of discussion on the data coming out of the other side, where companies are using various analytics platforms. They're using, yes, AI. Amazon, AWS was there talking about Bedrock. as a way to help process data and to make these data lakes more useful. That's really the key that we're seeing emerge right now. Essentially, if AI is a data superhero, then you need to feed AI the right data. It needs to be vetted, it needs to be processed. One of the things that Qlik impressed us with last year was their talk about an AI quality score, or a data quality score that goes way beyond your traditional definition of data quality, like is it good
It's a
data?
trust
Yes, no.
score.
A
Sorry,
trust score, yeah.
yeah.
And so maybe you can talk a little bit about that guy, because that thing really kind of opens up your eyes to the fact that there's a lot more aspects of data quality and data trust than just is it right? And you know it's funny, for a conference that was really billed as being focused on agentic, it was really nuts and bolts. It wasn't a fleet of autonomous bots out there doing things to your data. It was much more prosaic. It was much more, I don't want to say clippy, but it was basically, you're building an application, you're not sure how to query the data. You've got AI there to help you query the data. You've got AI there to make sort of up to the minute recommendations or suggestions about how to deal with the business questions that this data raises. Definitely not the sort of pie in the sky AI replaces humans kind of messaging that you might expect. It was very much AI as an assistant. So what do you think, Guy?
Well, I agree. So Qlik, I would encourage people to think of Qlik not just as a for-profit vendor, which they very much are. They're owned by Thoma Bravo, an investment company. I don't think Thoma Bravo's out to benefit. I mean, they're capitalistic, right? But Qlik is also a community, and has been almost from the beginning, a very tight community. And Qlik the vendor serves Qlik the community really well. So they're customer focused, value focused. They're very methodical. You say nuts and bolts. That's a great way to put it. So, I mean, they got into AI when they bought Big Squid. That was in 2020. So it's before generative AI, before the AI craze. They've made a lot of acquisitions over the last 5 years. That was a significant one. Their AI strategy is just that sort of nuts and bolts, methodical, not generative AI so much as predictive AI, because that's their business, their data analytics. That's been their business. That's what they focus on. I think, though, the big theme was trust. In fact, 2 days before the conference, their first press release time for the conference had to do with a statement from the Qlik AI Council. The Qlik AI, I'll get to that statement in a second. This council was announced a year ago. On stage, I think you were there too, Stephen. Keynote. There's 4 very impressive members from around the world with varying backgrounds. And it had that feel of this big marketing announcement, and we're going to be building trust and all this stuff. But since then, not only has Qlik itself taken various concrete steps in the trust department, the trust score being the main one, but the Qlik AI Council also has been pretty active. It has not changed membership. And that first press release was a press release from the Qlik AI Council saying that, essentially, I'm going to paraphrase, AI is not going anywhere without trust. AI cannot scale without trust, I think, is roughly the statement they made. Trust meaning that when you use it, you get the outcomes that you expect, and you can understand where those outcomes came from, where those recommendations came from, where those decisions or recommended decisions came from. The trust score is based on the same thing. It has to do with the provenance of the data used, both for training and for, if there's RAG or some other form in the inference, as well as transparency about it. How, not is it it's like, how transparent is it? So it's not trust in every sense of the word. I think there's a lot of nuance there, but exactly, these folks, Qlik's core business was data analytics, business intelligence from the beginning, and they expanded forward into AI long before the generative AI craze. And then a couple of years back, they came backwards with the Talend acquisition that has to do with data quality. They seem to have recognized the issues in analytics and AI that, we keep harping on, but we seem to be fully penetrating in AI, which is the importance of the quality of the data. And I would like to talk about the AlpSolver acquisition too, but I'll just stop there because I can see Mike's getting ready to scratch his head and ask a question.
So can I ask you two questions? Because this has been a pet peeve of end users for as long as I can remember. And the first is, you get these analytics reports from IT, you don't know where the data comes from. And most people, especially business execs, don't trust the reports they get out of IT. They just look at that and they go, something's wrong here. It doesn't jive with how they understand the business. And we used to generate these stacks of reports that nobody read. And so I'm wondering, is A, that going to get any better? B is, the other frustration was I'd go ask IT a question and, they'd get me an answer and they'd be like, well, here's your answer. And it would be like 10 days later and it wasn't actionable. And I couldn't ask the next question because I'd have to wait another 10 days to get an answer for the previous set of questions. And so the whole thing wound up feeling like an exercise in futility. Is this going to get better?
It would be great if it got better. I will point out that your experience is not unusual from IT. And also that your experience rhymes with what happens in the data and analytics space. So analytics is a sort of another world of IT. I guess you could think of it as IT, but it's really not. Unfortunately, the truth is that the data and analytics folks have been very frustrated over the years because just like what you described, they have a reputation as being sort of inscrutable eggheads. Essentially, the business will come to them and say, hey, I need an answer. Is it A or is it B? And they'll get back reams of data and charts and graphs and a lot of it depends instead of, hey, is it A or B? One of the things that analytics companies are trying to do is sort of democratize access to data so that, they don't have to go through a data scientist to try to figure out the answer, that they can actually go direct to the data themselves and talk to their data. That's one of those vision sort of things. And hopefully get actionable information from that instead of a lot of it depends. We'll see if that's happening. It reminds me so much of AIOps and IT operations generally, IT infrastructure, trying to figure out ways of communicating with the business about what they're doing and what their goals are, and just basically trying to align everything that we're doing over here with what's actually being discussed on the business side. So is it changing? Maybe. That's certainly the goal. I'm not sure if they're achieving that.
As one of those inscrutable, or at least hopefully former inscrutable eggheads, I have a different take on what you just said, Mike. And I think I'd be curious what Bonnie's take is on this as well. My take is that on the one side, the inscrutable eggheads can't understand how nobody else can understand these reams of things and reports and multiple graphs and discussion and stuff that they produce, which is all very accurate and pretty darned impenetrable. But the source of the problem you're describing, Mike, is the fact that business leaders, maybe not even most of them, or sorry, all of them, but certainly most of them, they actually already know what they want the analysis to say, and what they don't want is to get analysis that does not confirm those priors. And there's a real difficulty to stop, look at what you're looking at, ask questions, and listen, especially when you're moving at the speed of business, So that's really been my take on it is, if you've already made the decision and you want the report to support it, and if you're not getting it, that Venus and Mars miscommunication between the data analysts and the business has really nothing to do with any of this technology.
Let's get Bonnie's thoughts in here real quick because we're coming up
No,
on
I think
time.
that's true. There is kind of a bias where you're looking for the data to support the position that you have with it, and it's very easy to do that using AI. And of course, as the AI gets to know what your queries are, it's going to do that for you anyway. So I think there is that bias that we're talking about, but also, having the user and the company and the business to be honest and more transparent in how they're doing it as well.
Yeah, I just got to say, so often you hear people talking about the bias in AI models, and I always look at them and I go, isn't that like the kettle calling the pot black?
Exactly.
Because, well,
It goes two ways. It's true.
there you go. All right. Hey, folks, we'll be back in a minute with our next segment from Bonnet.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Well, recently, right here in South Florida, Code Remix, this conference that was really geared towards developers, took off with over 100 attendees that came in from all over the world. And the focus, of course, is AI, automation. And I had the chance to speak to the CEO and the person who really put this whole conference together, Jonathan Schneider of Modern. Hi, everyone. I'm at Code Remix in Miami with the CEO of Modern, Jonathan Schneider. Jonathan, it's so great to have you on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'd love to hear some of the themes and why you decided to do it.
First of all, I want to see more developer conferences come to the United States. Really like high impact, deep technical, where people get hands-on and do things. A lot of conferences in Europe right now in that vein, but just not so many in the US. And so I live in Miami right now, and it was important to me to bring our first iteration of this conference here kind of close to our home in Miami. Modern is really large-scale automated refactoring of source code. And so we heard this morning from Dove Cass and Morgan Stanley that they have over 4 billion lines of source code under management. To try to keep that stuff up to date, to keep it modern, to keep it secure, requires just a ton of manual effort. Really kind of not fun work to do when you just have to keep kind of going back and cleaning house. So we're automating a lot of that work and really freeing developers to do the things that they want to do, which is build net new stuff.
And how is AI coming into it? Tell me about your processes there.
Sure, yeah. I think really we have a deterministic system that's going to go and predictably make the same change over and over again. But we have thousands of what we call recipes that make different kinds of changes, and those are hard to discover and understand what's possible. And AI basically is patient to read through all the recipe descriptions and try to find the right ones and apply them. And once it's being applied, it's a deterministic output. So really, it's the best of both worlds.
So tell me about the conference. You have people here that are from all over. It's global, right?
It is, absolutely. We have folks coming in from Europe, from the US, from Canada, Mexico. These are the ones I've heard so far. But really, like you mentioned, developer focused. We have 3 tracks. Really a developer focused one, a leader track, and the thing that we're really trying out this year is something called a hack track, where we told attendees before they came, hey, bring your work laptop, bring it with all your code on it, get security to approve it in advance, almost like we called it pack for the hack. Get that approval before you come so that when you come here, we can do work with you. Too often I go to conferences and people bring personal laptops and then, there's not much we can do with them while we're there. So we'll see what kind of work we can get done.
So what do you think is the biggest, hottest topic in your space right now?
A lot of people are questioning what is the role of a developer in the world where AI is also working with them. How do I use that most effectively? There's a lot of fear, I think, right now. And so this is a great time for us to get together as a developer community here and talk through some of those things.
And finally, you said your company, you're based in Miami. Or what are your goals for Modern going forward?
Yeah, we're just continuing to grow. Just raised a $30 million Series B a couple months ago. We've hired in go-to-market functions, continue to hire in engineering, and just trying to work closely with our customers to make them as successful as we possibly can.
Jonathan Schneider, CEO of Modern, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I also did other interviews with some of the bigger players that were there as well. And I know we're going to talk about one in Diff Blue because I spoke to one of the executives that came in from there. It was an interesting mix of people. And one of the things, as Jonathan mentioned, is that people were doing real time, I guess, hacking through laptops there. He wanted to have this to be a hands-on experience, not just listening to lecture tracks, but really getting that hands-on experience for developers, and seemed to be successful. Now, of course, I didn't mention that the location was at a beachfront hotel, so I'm sure people enjoyed that as well. But the people I spoke to were very busy comparing notes, working together, and collaborating. And I tried to cover some of that in the video, and I'm sure I'll show more going forward.
All right. So this is one of those don't look behind the curtain at the wizard kind of moments. So here's the real deal with this thing. Every time you hear one of these AI companies start talking about how they created some sort of AI agent to reverse engineer code, what they've done actually is Modern has an open source platform that turns legacy code into some sort of representation that can be read by an AI agent. And most of these folks who are making these claims are just pointing an AI agent at this particular platform to then reverse engineer and not telling you that they're using the open source platform underneath. Modern also has its own AI agents for doing similar things and is offering similar set of services and making an argument that says, well, since we invented this thing, we know it better than anybody else. But I am excited about the idea of being able to do all this because the cost of upgrading and switching things is way too high. And I look at it on two levels. One is we can figure out how to make existing applications more efficient and save some money. And two is, well, maybe, I want to switch vendors. And now it's a lot easier to do that if I can, deconfigure or reverse engineer the existing code and turn it into something else. So I kind of like this whole thing, and I'm hoping that, the cost of switching is going to drop to zero, but maybe I'm just being overly optimistic. It's a rare Monday. I'm optimistic on a lot of things today.
Rare indeed. Not sure what to do with that. Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, I was actually kind of puzzled by this whole statement about bring your work laptops, bring your work code, and let's hack on it here. Really? I don't want to be weird, but ain't no way I'd bring my work code to be hacked on by random people at a conference.
Yeah, that seems like a security issue.
He did say, to his credit, he did say get it approved by security before doing this, which I'm definitely on board with. Was there a lot of that going on?
Yes, that's at least from what I could see, because I was shooting the B-roll for it, and I actually asked some of the guys because they were probably like, "Why is this person taking video of us just talking over our laptops?" But that's exactly what was happening. So there was that real time collaboration, and it was interesting because most of those folks were meeting for the first time that were involved in that. So we'll have to hear how.
So what's the idea here? Is that you can take some legacy code that's running in production, and parse it for recoding plus replatforming? Is that what you're thinking, Mike?
Essentially, that's what they're thinking. But I want to get to this coding thing and sharing my code because we've hosted a hackathon or two, and I'll tell you, it takes about just the first day of everybody going, I don't want to show my code to anybody else. I'm too embarrassed. I'm too worried about it. I don't want to be criticized. There's all this stuff that goes on that has squat to do with the tech, and it's all about the emotions.
Yeah, I think the tech might have something to say after you're done with that recoding and you post it to a staging environment, Mike. It's no doubt helpful and useful to be able to do this. Just imagine combining this with a little MCP or A to A action and starting to deploy some agents to carry out some of the same things using whatever collection of tools you have somewhere else. There's a lot that can be done, but I don't think it addresses the root cause of old code. The root cause of old code, yeah, go ahead.
I think this is also a chronic issue because the number of developers that are working on greenfield environments is like maybe 20% if we're lucky. And the rest of us get, and you show up for work and there's some system that's already been running for the last decade. It's probably got all kinds of turds hidden in it, and you're supposed to go fix and run this thing. And, it's like, it's really hard and almost impossible to understand the code. So at least, with a mix of tools like this and a little help from Gen AI, maybe we can actually get in there and understand what that code is. Steven?
Yeah, well, that's an optimistic assessment. I think that it's a possible one too. I mean, we've seen this. I remember when we were at the Share conference last year, mainframe conference. There were companies. I think BMC was one of them, talking about using machine learning to document and untangle old COBOL code, and because you know it's not completely. It is actually pretty reasonable to think that an AI could help to figure out what code is doing, could help to spot bugs in code, and could help to document code. I really like that about the modern concept as well. You've got a lot of Java code out there. Some of it is older, some of it's newer, some of it's better quality than and having AI help you with that, it actually makes a lot of sense. Frankly, as weird as this sounds, I might trust AI to evaluate my code more than a random dude at a conference. So there's that.
Yeah,
That.
good
With
point.
so
So you
many
had to say mainframe. It was in my head, and I did not want to use this such an easy pickings, Stephen, because much as yes, you want to be able to explainability, titanic, huge, especially old mainframe systems, but you're just not going to want to mess with that stuff. You want to explain, you want to be able to see it. There are opportunities to tweak or what have you, but the whole purpose of it being on a mainframe is to give it this sort of inviolable aspect to it, and that cuts towards what I was saying before is the root cause of the problem, because it's not just mainframes. You have something that's working and very little understanding of the effects that it has throughout your systems.
I think, unfortunately, and to your point, people are terrified to go take these projects on. I mean, we've all heard the stories about the CIO who lost their gig because they went and hired some global system integrator to come in and reverse engineer some application sitting on a mainframe, most likely. And then, when the job got started, some bus full of grad students pulled up and they all piled in and moved in for 2 years and nothing ever got done. And then eventually, the board was like, you're clearly crazy, and moved on. And I think there's a certain amount of, I don't know, Stephen, fear. I'm just too terrified to touch anything that might be working, and I'm just going to leave it all.
Well, maybe fear, but also, frankly, a lot of people have been burned by these projects, like you talked about. There's been a lot of situations where, you call in some kind of assistance, let's say, and the assistance they're providing is not so great. Again, I would trust an AI to help document my code more than a random contractor of a subcontractor of a subcontractor from who knows where looking at all my enterprise code. So, I think I'm coming around to this. I think I like the idea of AI coding assistance and AI coding
Yeah, and I'm way more on your and Mike's side than I sound. I just, it's like take the first down. Just take it. It's good. It's good. It would be enormously helpful. We're not throwing touchdown passes just yet.
All right. Bonnie, final thoughts from this conference of yours that you went to? I mean, what was the vibe from the people there? Were they optimistic, or were they
Yes,
kind
they
of,
definitely were. They were very happy to collaborate. One of the things Jonathan talked about was that he didn't feel that there were enough of those kind of conferences in the U.S. Versus other ones, I guess he attended in Europe. So I think this was the first one of the Code Remix. He's hoping it's going to be, one of many. But it was definitely collaborative and international. And companies that you mentioned in the DevOps.com article, DiffBlue, Azul, all represented there. And I saw some other names in the DevOps world that Techstrong has worked with before. So yeah, I would say it was definitely positive. Of course, I mentioned the location. That doesn't hurt. But it was, people seemed to be very eager to collaborate.
all right, so you should just only go to conferences in nice places, though,
Yeah,
right?
if you're going to have nice
With nice
views, maybe
people.
it'll be
Well,
inspiring.
coming from a conference at a Disney property on Disney grounds, yeah, same kind of thing. A lot of people came in. I think there's a lot of traction to going to Disney with Qlik and going to Miami Beach with this. Yeah.
All right. Well, as somebody who's on his way to a conference in Boston, I don't think I'll be sitting on a beach anytime soon, but maybe next time. Hey, I want to thank everybody for sharing their insights and knowledge. And I would just share this final thought. Maybe when it comes to AI, it's like FDR said, all we got to do is is fear itself, right? Because ultimately, we're cautious and reasonable. These things are going to be good for everybody. Hey, we want you all to stay tuned for the next kind of episodes of Techstrong TV. They're coming up right behind us, and I'm pretty sure there's more AI in there somewhere. See you next time.